This is a book review of What If from Marvel Comics. This is the complete collection, volume 1. Now there's volume 1, 2, 3 and 4 at the moment, so I don't know if they're bringing out any more volumes. This book came out in 2019 and it includes, just going to turn it around, What If 1 to 12. Now these comics came out originally in 1977. And there's that spine there, see with Thor there, Female Thor, obviously that did happen in the end. And I'm just going to open it up so you can see the spine. Now this book has got approximately 430 pages and it's got a variety of stories, which is the thing that really makes it, which was the thing that I really loved about What If. It wasn't just because every week it was always Spider-Man's story. What if Spider-Man had not met the Goblin? What if Spider-Man had battled Ant-Man or something? Whatever. They didn't do that. They varied it, which obviously sometimes the stories did sort of end up similarity. They were, but what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Well, before I do that, I'll show you it's got a little introduction, which is nice. And the stories, as it says, are parallel worlds. They actually happen, obviously, in the Marvel universe, or maybe they really do happen in the real universe as well, but in parallel worlds. And this one, the first one, is obviously Spider-Man joined Fantastic Four, and it was from Spider-Man issue 1 as well as the annual. And there's some scenes. And there's one thing they really did all the way through these. You'd have these stories where obviously if Spider-Man joined Fantastic Four, and you'd have like the battle against the Red Ghost, but instead of, however, just having it Fantastic Four, the 4 of them, it was with Spidey in there as well. So obviously it would change the event slightly. And they did that quite often. So you'd have some great sort of reminders of some classic issues that would be stuck in there. And also you had the Submariner story here. And that was a really good story, of course, with, well, not going to say anything about the story because it's worth checking it out. Another thing about this book, which is really great, it includes, well, in the letter pages, which is slightly unusual. Most of the Marvel epics and completes do not include those. You've got 3D Man. Whatever happened to 3D Man? But it's also great for many things because no one's ever turned around and said, but it's basically the tales of the Watcher. You got the Watcher was the main character. And also you got a little bit of background as well about some of the, obviously the early stories, which is quite nice. What if the Hulk had always had Bruce Banner's brain? Oh, that's a mouthful. Bruce Banner's brain. Don't stop. He may be a green-skinned monster, but he's also my son-in-law. Great. Absolutely classic. Now this is good because of course it then brings back good old Herb Trimpe, or Trimp, however you say that, I don't know. And his brilliant art. I love these stories. And it's got some really nice twists and turns there. And obviously you've got a bit of a crossover with the Fantastic Four, which is really nice as well. Though I must admit, the art does change a bit. This sometimes with these complete collections often is slightly odd, or any epics or anything, is you go from really sharp pages that really look, and the artwork is superb, really crisp. And then suddenly you go to one where it looks quite rough. And it's very, very, I'm not going to show it because that would spoil the end for that story, but it's a pity that, I don't know why it suddenly, maybe they didn't have the top quality photostats to work from. I don't know. Again, another letters page. Then the next one, issue 3, What If Avengers Had Never Been? And that's got, of course, my favourite artist, Gil Kane. Though inked, weirdly, by Klaus Janson. And the story is really, really good. And it's more really an Iron Man story than Avengers. But it's a classic tale. And I'm just going to show a bit of the artwork there. And it's really quite a nice idea because there's Iron Man has got obviously lots of technology to use. So it's a real good story. Another letters page. Also you've got these lovely bits where the obviously you've got some artwork there, which is nice, a nice touch. What if the Avengers had stayed together after World War II? And that's quite a nice one because you've got obviously Miss America, Submariner, Wizard, and those sort of things. It's a story with Captain America and Bucky and Zemo turns up. And that's a real good one because it's basically obviously the Invaders story. So if you're a real fan of the Invaders, then these are great just because they're stories of your favourite groups or your favourite characters, and you can go, wow. You don't even have to treat them as a sort of alternate universe. And another thing that also, sometimes it's really quite nice endings, sometimes really sad endings. So it's never always a, oh, the world ends kind of thing, or someone dies, or etc. Sometimes it's actually, you get a lovely twist with the story, and it's quite a touching end where the characters go off into the sunset, or a new hero is created out of, or maybe like Spidey, you suddenly realise a little bit more about Peter Parker's character, which is really quite fascinating. And I love this bit with this one. It's got obviously some American politicians that are fairly well known in that. What if Captain America hadn't vanished during World War II? Well, that's a good story as well, though the art's a bit rough in this one, I have to say. But it was a decent tale. Bucky lives. Good old Bucky. Oh, Zemo again. Good old Zemo. A regular character there. You've got that, and then all the way through to the next one. What if the Fantastic Four had different superpowers? Well, I must admit, that's a bit of a, wasn't so good, that one. Great bit of artwork there. It's quite nice. And, well, you could always have these stories. What would if they had this power or that power? It's not so good, I don't think, that story. But still, has a twist at the end, of course. But this one's quite good, but it's done in a sort of weird sort of 3-1. What if someone else beside Spider-Man had been bitten by a radioactive spider? Now, of course, it's a ridiculous story because, of course, in every case, Peter Parker is in the storyline. But what if someone else completely random was bitten by? Maybe the Hulk was bitten, or maybe Reed Richards, or maybe some other Karen Page, or other characters. They could have done that. Maybe they have done that. I don't know. It's possible. But he's got Flash Thompson. That's quite an unusual story, the Flash Thompson one. Betty Brant. It's a good one. And then to what if the world's new Daredevil was blind? It was an interesting storyline because, of course, it would actually reveal a lot of things, and obviously people would put 2 and 2 together and then they'd realise how to stop Daredevil. But that's always the trouble with any like kryptonite. It's basically the kryptonite story. Now, sometimes he's had some really unusual artists, ones that I must admit, I'm not, maybe other people are familiar with these people, but you've got Don Glut as the writer, Alan Kupperberg, obviously Jim Mooney, I know of Jim Mooney, but Alan Kupperberg, I have to say, don't know. So you've got that story. It's good. It's still fairly, it's just quite a short one. It's quite a short story. It's very enjoyable. Then you've got a lovely Hembeck one. I love Hembeck. Mega fan of Hembeck. So you've got Hembeck there. The Amazing Man Spider. What if Spidey had been bitten by a radioactive human? Bit of a contrived story, of course, but still another short story, but great art. What if the Avengers had fought evil during, that's a bit of a mouthful. What if the Avengers, why didn't they just call it, why haven't the Avengers, in the 50s, had fought evil during the 1950s? And then, of course, they changed it on the next page. So you got that title. You got the title there. And then the next bit, on the front page, what if the Avengers had been formed during the 1950s? Maybe it didn't sound so dramatic. But you've got an unusual, because you've got basically the Agents of Atlas that came along later, except, of course, doesn't have 3D Man. Whatever happened to poor old 3D Man? I mean, he had triple strength and the poor guy never maybe died, I don't know. Gorilla Man looks a bit weird in this as well. But good art, actually. The art by Alan Kupperberg and Bill Black. Well, some of it. Yellow Claw doesn't look remotely like Yellow Claw. However, still, it's quite a good story. I don't know where this character came from. There's this Ice Warrior character, a bit like Doctor Who and the Ice Warriors. Now, for some weird reason they put this in. What if classic? I don't know why that bit is in there. This is a lovely story. This is probably one of the best classics at the time. What if Jane Foster had found the Hammer of Thor? Of course, that becomes a classic, obviously, later when, of course, we did have a female Thor. But it's a genuinely really lovely tale, I think. It's of course got Loki, Odin, etc. Another good story, it's very good because it's of course drawn by Jack Kirby, is the classic one where, this is from issue, I wish I kept that one. That just, there's one thing that always annoys when you go through these books or when you see adverts for old comics, you think, wish I kept that one. The Beatles, Marvel Super Special Issue 4, I had that years ago. Well, I had all these what ifs as well. However, what if the original Marvel bullpen had become the Fantastic Four? That's a great story. You've got Jack Kirby, you've got Stan Lee, of course, and just Flo Steinberg as well, and Sol Brodsky. You've got some superb, of course, artwork from Jack Kirby. It's quite always good. And what if Rick Jones had become the Hulk? Now that story is a bit, it's okay, but it's quite a touching story in the end, to be honest. And that was the thing with these. Sometimes it was real sad. You'd end up, like say, the character Daredevil would die or something, or Karen Page would die in his arms or whatever. And then other stories, you'd suddenly have the character, instead of being miserable on our world, ends up having a great time, enjoying the existence that's been brought about here. So it's quite a pleasure to see your characters in a really nice way, as well as obviously sometimes sad when they become evil or something. So you think, oh no, don't want my character to be evil. But it's nice to, though of course sometimes the best stories are like that. Star Trek one comes to mind, of Mirror Mirror and all those sorts of things. Yeah, that Naked Time. And other stories, very similar. So this is What If, absolutely brilliant. I'm really looking forward to get volume 2 and volume 3. I've got volume 4, so I'm looking forward to volume 2 and 3. And this is a great series of What If, the complete collection, volume 1. Totally recommended.